the fear of unknown and the fear of the number as well of the irregular migrant workers. Because, as I mentioned, that is because a big proportion, half of them are irregular migrant workers. Also, they are illegal migrants. There is the fear of unknown. They don't know who are the non-registered one, and a big number of them. And for the personal safety issue is also the major concern of the Thai people, because that is about half of them, over half of them, more than half of them, the threat to their life and properties. How come? You know that, but they still fear of that one. As I mentioned, that one is the journalist also, that talking about the bad news, the bad side of the refugee and the migrant, and also the non-registered migrant threat for their life and their properties. As mentioned, the media reports on the refugee and migrant in Thailand, because I remember that is our former colleague also was sued by the factory because he presented how the migrant workers were exploited from the fruit company, the pineapple can fruit, the company, and he was sued by the company, but there's the case still in the court. There is because he has his background is the journalist. When he got the finding from the research, he tried to publish that in the journalist's eyes. There is we have learned that it's very dangerous. As the academic, we need to compromise the views. And for the human rights issue, it seems to me that this aspect maybe the Thai government quite agree or support the humanitarian aids for the refugee in the camp, and they still thinking that is when we doing the conducting the focus group and the in-depth interview, they still thinking that because of the national budget we provide them, and they think that this should be the role of the international NGO rather than the local Thai government to do this. But they do agree to give the assistance to those refugees in the camp, and also the basic needs to serve their basic needs. Even sometimes they think that, okay, it seems like their view sometimes is quite conflicting with some issues, because they think that, okay, registered migrants should be well protected similar to the Thais, but less so for the refugee and non-registered migrant workers. But they're not willing to pay the similar wage for the migrant worker and the Thai worker. But they think this one, but they're doing another thing, in the Thai society. But even we conduct the research and we interview the employer, because the minimum wage in Thailand is 300 baht. And they said they got more than 300 baht. I said that how come? Because we just interviewed the migrant worker, and they said 200 baht. And they said because they provide the housing, provide the house and provide the food, is already exceed 300 baht. They mentioned that way, that they think in terms of that they don't think that is the wage is different from other things, but they include everything into the daily wage. And for the labor protection, they agree to protect those who are registered one and should have the same labor protection. But actually, when in the practice, no. But in their perception, yes. And the majority do not want the migrant worker registered to have the same minimum wage as Thai, as I mentioned, that they do agree to get the similar labor protection, but should not get the same minimum wage as the Thai. It's contradictory thing because the minimum wage is a part of the labor protection. And for the economic issues, for the job competition and competition for land and natural resources, that is also the majority concern. For the job competition, that is more than 60% of the respondents, that is the illegal migrant workers, compete with them for the jobs. Is true or not true? And they just, okay, if they come, maybe they try to compete job with the local people. But actually, the local people want to work in the 3D jobs. But they work in the 3D jobs. But they still think that they compete in terms of the job. And also, competition with the registered migrant as well. But for the illegal migrant or the non-registered one, actually they accept the low minimum wage. I mean that lower than the minimum wage. That's why the non-registered migrant get the job. In the same job, but the employer pay 200 for the illegal migrant worker or 100 for the illegal migrant worker. But they have to pay for 300 for the Thai workers. That's why the Thai people think that those migrant workers try to compete with them for the jobs. Land and natural resources. They still think that land and natural resources, the migrant and the refugees also will compete with them. But actually in the Thai law, they're not allowed the foreigner to own the land, but just only the new that is for rent, for long-term rent. I'm not sure that is 30 years up to 99 years now, but they cannot be the owner of the land. And also for the natural resources, because they think that is in terms of, because we go in depth in this question as well, and why, and they said that because this one is sometimes that they came out of the camp and then they grow some vegetable and also they go to the forest for the subsistence, that to find like the mushroom, the bamboo shoot, and the things from the forest, the food from the forest. They're still thinking that maybe the refugee and the illegal migrant will compete with them for the natural resources in terms of this kind of thing. It's not that a big thing, right? That is for the daily living only, but they're still thinking this is a big issue as well. And when we talk about the socio-cultural issue, the majority of the Thai, they prefer, that is the refugee and the migrant need to use Thai language. Even they come, because they come to our country, they have to speak our language. And I think that why don't you want to study another language? They said, no, it's my country. I just want to use my language only. I don't want to study. They're coming here, they need to use the Thai language. And they think that the refugee and migrant should learn Thai together with their own ethnic language. They can use the bilingual in school. But I did conduct one research in the area that is concentration of the area. The area that concentration with the migrant is not far from Bangkok, it's Musakor. And I did talk to the teacher at the school. They said that the Thai people, they are quite against the migrant children to study in the same school. And some of them who they can afford for the private school or something, they just take their children away to study in the public school because they say that they don't want to put their kids in the same school as the migrant kids in the school as well as this one. But in some area, it's quite, that it's sometimes it's not just only by the community themselves, but also the role of the teacher as well to help to harmonize this one. Because I did interview the teacher in the southern Thailand when I conduct the child labor in the southern Thailand. It's about the migrant worker in the rubber plantation. And one teacher, he mentioned that he faced similar problem before, but he tried to make the people in the area to understand how to live together. And he mentioned that because your kids also can learn Myanmar language, and in the future, if you do in the business, you will get the advantage because you know the language as well. Not just only Thai, but you know Myanmar and you know another language. It will benefit your kids. Don't think about that way. And he tried to do the campaign to make the people in the community accept the migrant student in the community. It works very well, that. He said that on the first day, he accepted the migrant student in the school. One of the parents of the kid in the school walk around his room, and saying something one day, and he said, okay, it's maybe the perception about this issue is very strong. We need to help in this issue, and he was very successful to help the people in the area. And the Thai living in the border area, and also that is, they think that should learn the ethnic language for the refugee and migrants for the cultural exchange with the refugee and migrant. They're saying that yes, we should have the cultural exchanges between the refugee and migrant and the Thai. But actually, that no, that once like the migrant worker, they want to have the cultural event in Nakhon Pathom province, and they want to use the football field in one district in Nakhon Pathom, but they have made announcement and finally they were denied by the authority. That is because of the national security reason. For the education, majority of the respondents think that the Thai language should be taught in schools attended by refugees and migrants. They say that they have to learn Thai. And they support the accreditation of education provided to the children of refugees and registered migrants. Because as I mentioned earlier, that if the before that we have a problem in the Thai about the education issue is that even the migrant children, they study in the Thai school, but they could not get the certificate, even they complete all the curriculum. And we, from our previous research, we recommend that education for all is very important. They grown up here in Thailand, and even they are stateless persons, they have to get the certificate. And finally, in 2005, 2005, the Thai government accept the education for all, and then all the migrant children can enroll the school and can get the certificate. And a good thing about that policy is that the government never asks who are those students in the school. And this is a very good for the migrant students, because I interviewed that is one, it is a boarding school. It used to be for the Thai kids, and now 80% are the migrant students study there in the school. And we need to acknowledge the government in this issue, even we blame them more in another issue. And
so when you go to the school, what documents does the children use to prove his or her identity?
no, they're not. The government allow the school to generate the ID for the student. No need to show any.
So that means that they can never really integrate or get any access to local higher education. Right?
That's maybe a problem. But for the basic education, now the government allow them to get the education in the government school. But the problem is that before that they can attend the school, but they didn't get the certificate, and now they can get the certificate. And the government never asked for the identification number, the ID. But now they just allow the school to generate the new ID for those students, for the migrant students. But now there is just only a few months. I think that the last few months maybe cost maybe a new problem for the migrant student again, because there's the corruption. They send the that the number of the children exceed what they have in the school. Try to do the corruption, and I think that this is not good because we cause a migrant student in the near future as well for this one. And for the health issues, and the respondent quite